Welcome back. This is the Daily Brief. Former KPLC boss Ben Chumo, who was nominated for the position of chairperson for the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, SRC, is now appearing before the Senate Finance Committee for vetting. We shall listen in to that a bit. But in the meantime, we're just finishing the discussion in regards to the ongoing schools unrest. And of course, there has been a proposal by the Education Cabinet Secretary and the Ministry of Education to actually abolish boarding schools, and that is where we left our discussion from. Let me hear from you, Henry, Zog, and then Simon. Yeah,
I'm one person who also doesn't believe in boarding schools, actually, for the easy reason. Why does a student have to sleep in school for them to be said to be?
So you're in support of the stand by the Education Ministry. It's a proposal as it stands right now.
Yeah, it's a proposal, I know.
Yes.
And I think we should actually think, and we should ask ourselves, why do they sleep in school for them to study? We have many primary schools in Kenya, actually primary schools in Kenya, whether private and public, many of them are not boarding. And we don't hear such things happen. And the students, pupils study and they do well without necessarily having to spend nights in school. Boarding schools were meant to help students coming from very far, have a place to reside and wake up for classes the next day. But now it has become a business that has no reasoned purpose. Even when a child is coming from the neighborhood of the school, we just put them in a boarding school. So I think for me, by abolishing boarding schools, we are able to deal with also inequalities. Because I think we don't want to take our schools in their schools because most of them are not well established. They don't have enough teachers. They don't have facilities. But we want to take them to boarding schools because they are old enough, they have facilities, but these days, most of the villages, they have a day school. And why don't we
empower the schools?
Empower those schools and take our students there. And each day, a child comes from school and goes to visit their parents where they can get guidance from their parents also and their
There has been a notion over time, Zoga, that students can only really focus when they're in boarding schools to avoid disruptions and being derailed from their actual focus. Your thoughts on that?
I'm for and against in this way. I think boarding schools, in a way, they bring integration because people from different parts of the country can come and get to mix, and that's also very important for boarding schools. But then again, I think, and also the fact that the lack of parental care and all that also affect. But then again, there's the fact that there are systems in schools that have not been used. Like, for example, there are very many clubs from for a lot of time, there's been clubs and all this, but these things are run as if they're independent from one another. Clubs and academics work differently, and in a way, they should work together. Okay. So I think if these things are integrated, if, for example, we go mentor in a certain school, and the teachers do not want to know what we are doing, then it won't bring the child as a whole and bring up the young person as a whole. So I think if these things are put together and integrated, then it could solve some of these problems. Okay,
now I'm beginning to take final comments. I'll start with you, Simon, in regards to, of course, you've had proposals about the current curriculum. For those who are criticizing the current one, that the system is too much against the student instead of really focusing and understanding the individuals. What is your take as we finish?
Well, our system has been very exam-oriented, and in fact, we over-glorify exams. And in fact, there is that famous cartoon that makes rounds in social media about an elephant being an elephant and a rabbit being subjected to the same exam, and we fail to recognize the various abilities that various individuals have. Indeed, what we should have is recognize that we are all gifted differently. And that's one strength of this current curriculum that is being rolled out. and recognize the various roles that each stakeholder has to do. And as you realize, the new curriculum is demanding even so much from the homes. And this may come to as a remedy to the ills that that are facing our current system. But the system that condemns an individual, that you have a D and that is a destroyer, makes individuals feel very condemned. And somehow, take it or leave it, students will actually react. And given a chance, and I'm facing young Kenyans and telling them, this should not make you ban your schools. There should be respect.
There are other ways to resolve.
Yeah.
And we're going quickly here. Henry, for you, I'd like you to give us your final take on the role of parenting, bring up the children as well as their support for the education system.
Yes, just like you mentioned, the new curriculum, I think, is meant to help in resolving some of these issues.
Yeah.
And mentoring, as he mentioned, earlier on, is going to help if actually we adopt it in schools. I know in the university, especially where I teach at Tangaza University College, we have mentoring for all learners. So that, I think, we need to have, if a school has got 1,000 students, these 1,000 students should be given an opportunity in groups to journey with somebody who can be able to try to understand them, listen to them, hear their goals, and help them achieve them. Because I think sometimes we take them to school and we don't even want to hear whether they have any goal. So we want to take it, they go to school to just achieve our goals. But I think we need to journey with our students, and especially through mentoring groups, all the way from primary school, high school, and even in the universities. That is lacking.
Thank you, Henry. Must I'd like you to speak from the angle of a teacher. Very often, and even in the ongoing schools unrest, teachers are taking most of the bashing. Is the teacher too pressured in this case, or what should be done to ensure there's that connection between the students and the teachers?
So I think I agree, because the teacher is getting a lot of bashing and blame as to the student unrest. And looking as a teacher, as a person, are we equipping our teachers not only to teach but to mentor? So are we also equipping them in taking up some of the parental responsibilities that is expected of them? And I think a support system whereby our teachers are trained not just to teach but to mentor as well, goes hand in hand, will be part of the solution to all this, the pressure on the teacher. Or in regards to like the new curriculum, you see, also reducing the pressure on performance, because when you measure a teacher's performance by the number of A's, let me tell you, that human being will do whatever it takes to just perform, because at the end of the day, you want to protect your job. So I think just evening out, giving a teacher a scope and different varieties to assess the students might also be part of the solution in reducing the pressure on the teachers.
You have our final word, Zoga, and of course, I'd like you to tackle the place of mentorship. Is there a gap, and how can that be bridged?
Yes, I think there is a big gap in that. And in the olden days, there was a whole village to raise up a child. And right now, with the technicalities of life, it's impossible for us to have the village. But then again, we can have a society, we can have a community around this young person to make them be whole. And so it's just to ask, who's the community around the young person? Who are they hanging out with? Who is if there's the absence of the parents, who are taking up that role as the parents? What is the role of the teachers? What is the role of me as a member of the public? What can I do as a cousin, as an uncle, as whoever I am?
Okay, thank you very much for your time. And of course, we're talking about the ongoing schools unrest. Just earlier, if you're watching us, Baraka Karama indeed confirmed that a number of students have been arraigned this morning. And of course, we'll face quite a number of charges, including arson. So we shall tell you how that goes. But on this particular set, I've been speaking to Nzoga Ndenge, who is a student's mentor, Masi Kamau, who's a teacher and a mentor as well at the Kennedy School in Kitengela. We have Henry Kamunde, who's a lecturer at Tangaza University, as well as Simon Oshira from the School of Education of Tangaza University. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. We're now crossing over to the National Assembly. Like I'd mentioned to you, sorry, to the Senate actually, like I'd mentioned to you, the Senate Finance Committee is currently grilling the nominee for the position of chairperson of SRC1, Mr. Ben Chumo. Let's listen in.
Motivator. But I really look forward, Chairman, to being of influence, making a contribution towards a country on matter salaries and remuneration, and putting to practice my experience over the years on this matter of salaries, and to support this country to manage this challenge as we know it together. And so that really is as very minimal relationship with my current pension and whatever I earn. But I think the answer is already given in the fact that I'll drop out of Ikatu University. On the Vision 2030, Chair, this is an area where all of us really need to put our efforts together and I'll not be left out. Already, in my previous life at KPSC, Vision 2030 was at the heart of our plans and developments. You know, we all know very well that no investor will invest in a dark country. And so my contribution towards Vision 2030 already is felt. However, I want to make yet another contribution, Chair, particularly appreciating the impact of the big four, you know, which are health, manufacturing, housing, and housing. The third one, Chair, health, manufacturing, housing, and food security. These are the critical four that will support the success of this country. But relating this to the wage bill, Chair, you know, if we, like I've already mentioned, if, as we speak today, 55% of the tax revenue go towards salaries and allowances, then there would be nothing left really for development. And so managing the wage bill indirectly will contribute towards having additional resources to put into this particular big four. And so there will be the contribution towards from SRC towards the big four will be managing to lower, like I mentioned already, to lower the wage bill so that we can then be able to have extra resources to be able to put into these four agenda items that we have identified as a country. Thank you, Chair.
Mheshimiwa Jimmy Hangwani.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Doc, according to the law, the law provides that the Commission will be guided by two principles. One, equal remuneration for equal value of work. Two, the Commission should take into account any recommendations made by another committee or task force on remuneration. What specific technical advice and capacity building will the Commission offer to the government to ensure that remuneration and the benefits to state and public officers is sustainable, competitive, fair, and equitable?
Mheshimiwa Oyula.
Thank you, Chair. Daktari, I just want to ask you a simple question. Most of your life has been an HR. You only became an MD for 3 years at the Kenya Power. Before that, you were an HR. We all know the jobs of HR. From that profession, your job, for all those years as an HR, can you today tell us, are you a rich man or a poor man? So what would be your net worth as of now? And now that you already retired, how do you expect to maintain your standard of life what will be your other sources of income and so forth, so that you maintain that respect you have had. Thank you, Chair.
Daktari, I think you can now proceed, answer those particular questions.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, let me respond to the question by the Honorable Member of this committee, Honorable Angwenyi. The technical expertise, the mandate of SRC primarily is to ensure that government attracts, retains, and motivates civil service staff by paying them a salary that is market-driven. That is market-driven. And so how do we know that our salaries are market-driven? SRC must, from time to time, go out there, carry out a survey, or take advantage of regular surveys conducted by professional bodies like BWC, for example, Deloitte, become a member of those surveys so that every so often public service or SRC is up to speed on market trends, on matter salaries. And so without necessarily having to deploy resources itself to carry out the exercise by hiring an expert body like PwC or Deloitte or other bodies to conduct the survey, particularly for civil service, SRC can become a member of surveys that are done annually and benefit from it. That's what we used to do at KPSC. You don't have to do it yourself. You can become a member so that when that document comes, you are part of it, and you can then pay some minimum amount to become a member of that particular survey. And a job evaluation exercise is primarily a dipstick to determine how well you are in the marketplace. A lot of times, companies or institutions, organizations like public service could get worried about employees leaving the service. From where I sit as a human resource professional, there should not be any worry about people leaving an organization. What should worry you is where those employees go. And this is what job evaluation exercises provide, in the sense that you will get to, if an employee leaves an organization for a better company than where if you're comparing two companies, if an employee is lost to a better company, then that is a fairly good practice. You are losing your staff to a better company. It means you must improve to be able to retain those employees. But you should get worried if an employee leaves the company for a less considered company in the marketplace. Then that becomes a worry. And so in terms of deploying, ensuring that there is a fair and equitable salary, the frequency of job evaluation exercises and, of course, fairly comprehensive job evaluation exercises to make sure that you are within the marketplace, within the ranges that are payable in the marketplace, should be able to give SRC some reasonable understanding, to be able to achieve its mandate of attracting, retaining, and motivating civil service. I appreciate this, Chairman, that we might not necessarily equate civil service, a typical civil service, with practices in commercial enterprises. That I understand very well, because commercial enterprises operate on the profit motive, but civil service doesn't. It provides a service. However, A salary is a salary regardless of what service. Because if for government to be able to offer a service, it requires skilled human resources, which must be attracted from the common market with everybody else, including private sector. There must be
Happening right now is a vetting by the Senate Finance Committee, who are looking for the rightful candidates in regards to the SRC. Ben Chuma was nominated as for the position of chairperson of that very same commission. Of course, he's defending himself and as to why he sees himself as best fit. So we shall keep you up to speed on that. In fact, I'll be bringing you this and other news at the top of the hour during K24 Newscut. For now, however, time now to get into your business with Inside Business. Tony Timasa is up next. My name is Wafula. Our sign language interpreter has been Walter. So thank you for always staying with us.
Welcome back and a very good afternoon to you. My name is Tony Timase, and some of the stories that we are following this afternoon: Ben Chuma's vetting as CRC chairman. You would remember that he was arrested recently over Kenya Power issues. And of course, we do have Francis Wangusi in Parliament probe over the telco sector. And most interesting is a follow-up on a SIM swap scam that has terrified lots of Kenyans. We do, again, have an opportunity to speak to Mukisa Kitui, the Secretary General of UNCTAD, about Africa's e-commerce. I love this man. He's very eloquent and is up to speed about stuff that he talks about. Those are some of the stories that we are following for you this afternoon. We'll be right back with Inside Business. Welcome back. Now, let's just face facts. Safaricom has become, if you would like, a way of life. So when there's an interruption, it becomes a big news. Now, Safaricom restored services on Sunday after suffering a voice and data outage that affected critical transmission equipment. The outage caused by a damaged fiber link lasted several hours. All services were, however, restored by 2 p.m., according to the telecoms company. The affected areas were coast and lower eastern regions, as well as general data and availability across the network. Last year, the telecom operator suffered an outage for several hours that knocked out its services that the company then said was due to a network failure. Safaricom, which is 35% owned by South Africa's Vodacom, controls nearly 70% of Kenya's mobile market, with close to 30 million subscribers. Let's stick with Safaricom as well in this next story. And Safaricom has launched a base station in Taveta as part of its broader strategy to expand its network infrastructure in the country. The station, situated at Holi in Taita Taveta County, will help ease voice data and text communication in the region. Also known as the Savo Cluster, the station will serve Taita Taveta, Kwale, Makueni, and Kajiado counties.
For our customers, it has come in a very timely way, because we have clients right now. The government has its system going online. We have an instance, the e-citizen, so our customers are also able to get the services quite easily.
Lakini toka hii iwekwe, hata wao wa Tanzania pande hii wanalalamika. Communication imekuwa affected upande wao, zaidi wanatumia Safaricom. Na hata kwenye queries timboni kule zilizoko, zamani hatukuwa watu wanaweza communicate. Lakini kutokana na hii, watu wana communicate vizuri bila matatizo yote.
Madagascar have signed a memorandum of understanding in Antananarivo, Madagascar, to boost their footprints in Africa. Through the privileged partnership, the three airlines commit to develop code share agreements and increase the connectivity options and offer a wide choice of services to customers. The new partnership opens up the possibility of implementing new connections between the Indian Ocean and the African continent, which will bring the three territories closer together. There is an ongoing Africa Union trade meeting on e-commerce. It's going to go on for like 3 days, just about how to spur e-commerce in Africa and the role that the African continent, countries in the African continent can take up in this developing way of doing business. We do have an option of speaking to Mukisa Kitui. He is the Secretary General of UNCTAD. Massimiliano was there and had an opportunity to interview him. Let's listen in then.
Conference where there have been conversations on how Africa can tap into this space to increase even its trade with other countries. And now joining me for more information is Dr. Mukisa Kitui, the UNCTAD Secretary General. Thank you so much, Dr. for speaking to us. How can African countries tap into the e-commerce market?
First of all, infrastructure necessary for e-commerce has to be built. This includes, first of all, broadband, fixed and mobile. Secondly, you must have physical infrastructure. There's no point in ordering something electronically if there is no road to deliver it. And there's no postal service or other parcel service that is competent for delivering. Third, you must have laws about the privacy that are necessary to enhance trust in the e-commerce. But also importantly, you must have laws that protect the right of the person purchasing something, that they have a right to reject it and get back their payment. So all these are part of the issues to be dealt with at national level and internationally. But also while doing that, countries must start investing in developing local content development skills. The education system has to be aligned with the market realities of the fourth industrial revolution.
You've mentioned a lot about political goodwill for countries to fully invest in e-commerce, and the likes of Rwanda have also done it. Isn't it about time maybe for governments to relook the potential of e-commerce and be the ones to champion for it?
You know, the government of Kenya actually has a political will and commitment to developing the digital economy. But the dialogue has to be about what are the best practices to be developed. But similarly, you cannot do this as one country. Like East African community, you need to lock your steps so that procurement of goods and services across the common market is enabled by legislation that is similar in all countries. And also to develop a regional electronic market, currency. There's no point why I should not be able to buy services in Burundi using my mobile phone. And that requires the cooperation of governments beyond the borders of national territory.
Lastly, before we release you, is that you've really mentioned a lot about privacy, and if I am to buy something from China or Burundi, there are a lot of rules that need to be put in place to protect consumers. Do we need like a continental, as far as maybe countries can put rules in place, do we need a continental, maybe a global regulation to protect consumers?
There is discussion going on globally about the integrity of electronic commerce and the abuse of privilege of electronic trading giant platforms. But at national level, the urgent thing is address how do you connect the small-scale producer in Kenya to international markets, even to national markets, through the possibilities offered by electronic commerce protocols and practices. So I will put attention to making it good domestically and looking at cooperating regionally before going global. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mukisa Kitui, for speaking to us. Well, we've been here discussing on the e-commerce potential, especially for African countries. And if we can take a look about the numbers, is that Kenya currently we contribute around 2.9%, Morocco 2.3%, Mozambique 1.6%, and Nigeria 1.5% out of Africa's contribution to the global e-commerce market. Well, it has been quite an interesting conversation, and also what was mentioned earlier is that Kenya is set to host a global e-commerce conference coming towards the end of the year. And of course, that is something that we look forward to, where the big investors, the who is who in the e-commerce platforms, will be coming to Kenya, and also to discuss even with heads of state on how African countries can be able to tap into the e-commerce and also increase their trade with other countries. And also, this is good news for local producers who will now be able to have a bigger market for their goods to other countries instead of the normal expenditure of the traditional export. They'll be able to tap into this e-commerce market and also access a larger market for their goods to other countries. Back to you in studio.
Thank you very much, Milanoy. It's always a pleasure speaking to Mukisa Kitui. He's very eloquent and up to speed in terms of what he speaks about. We'll take a short break now, but some of the stories that we are following. Ben Chumo vetting at CRC chairman. He was arrested recently, if you would remember, but he's undergoing vetting now to become the chairman of SRC. Francis Wangusi, that's the one that we're following as a business desk very closely. He's in Parliament probe over the telcos sector and particularly SIM swap. There are claims of insider dealings in this whole thing. That's a story that we are following up. But first, let's take a short break. We'll be right back.